It's backwards though.
It's hidden.
Yeah.
Oh, it's backwards.
Yeah, that's so you probably thought it was already on. Yes.
Hello, Officer Mullins.
He's pulling forward. Tell him.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today is February 2nd, 2023. Time is 3:01. I will call to order the City Commission Workshop meeting. Thank you all for being here. We'll start the meeting with ceremonial matters, legislative prayer, and pledge of allegiance. We rise for the prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity to come together. Give us cool heads, cool hearts. Help us to forward the important business and work of this city. All God's people said, amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we'll have a roll call. Zone 1. Zone 2. Present. Zone 3. Here. Zone 4.
Here.
And Mayor President as well as the City Administrator. City Attorney is on his way. He's stuck behind a wreck on I-4. Hopefully he'll be here soon. Another thing that is typically on the agenda, not on this one, but I will open the floor for any additions and deletions if any commissioners would like to add or delete anything from the agenda as presented.
I would make one correction to the agenda. Under the public works job description, it says that a copy of the previously approved edition is attached. It's not. That is the proposed new one. It's got 24 months in it, and that was not in the old one. The old one says 12 months. This one's a 2022 one. And I got the one prior to that one too.
What time did that came out?
I think it was November or something, somewhere around there. It might have been October, somewhere.
Roger, can we go forward with this? Is there significant differences in the two?
Just the 24-month
I
requirement.
want to change that anyway, so.
Yeah.
Okay, we can go forward with
Okay, with that addition or change, correction, however you want to characterize it. So, any other additions or deletions? I have one, and it's a pretty significant one. The stormwater master plan was the initial reason for calling this meeting. The city engineer has come down with COVID and is unable to attend, therefore explain or defend any parts of it. We can still have some discussion if anybody on the board would like to discuss it, but as far as deep discussion, I think we should, if,
I think it should be postponed.
yeah, if we would, I think we better postpone most of that discussion so that we can have the engineer here. Would anybody care to weigh in on that?
We'll make a motion to table, item number
Second.
3A.
A motion and a second to table item 3A. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor say aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carries. Item 3A is tabled. Thank you. It's unfortunate. It's an important order of business for the city, but we need to do it the right way, so thank you. I would like to just take a point of personal privilege and open the meeting with an apology for some of the ways the last meeting went and my part in that. I apologize for the lack of order that I may have displayed. I hopefully learned some lessons and can move forward in a more orderly manner. That's my pledge to you. I'll give it my best shot, and my apology is sincere. I suppose perhaps I should apologize to Commissioner Eckert personally, because that was where most of the friction was, and so my part in creating that friction, I apologize.
I would like to add to that.
Yes, sir, please. Chair recognizes you.
One of the things I do is when there's a problem, and I apologize also to the citizens and to Mayor Lane, in my actions and methods. But one of the things I do, if there comes up with a contract, I go back and review it. And in my notes at the House, under parliamentary procedure, I've got a list of watch out things to watch out for that are traps that you can fall into in the parliamentary procedure. And I fell into one of them last meeting. In my enthusiasm to get the job description done, I failed to get recognized by the chair's seat, which that's what the parliamentary procedures call. The mayor's position is the chair's seat, to be recognized before bringing it before the panel. So I apologize for that outburst and my part in causing that problem. And I've been reviewing my watch out situations so that I avoid those situations in the future.
I appreciate that, and thank you. On my part of the procedure parts of it, you were right in that at pretty much any time anybody on this dais can make a motion regarding pretty much anything. There are times when the chair should perhaps say, would you hold that thought until such and such agenda placement? But I didn't get to that point, and I was squelching, making a motion when perhaps I should not have. So there was plenty of blame to be shared around.
And then a problem, I would ask permission first.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. We can both do that, right? I think we both.
Yes, it's a learning experience.
It is. It is. Thank you for being willing to learn as well. I surely will. So, moving on to item 3B, leadership. Commissioner Heather Robles has requested that the city commission discuss staff leadership. Do you want us to turn it over to you, or do you,
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd like to just kind of give a broad overview of the conversation that I had with Mr. Epic back on January 6th in person. We had an in-person meeting around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And at that point, I had a laundry list of concerns that I brought to his attention, things that I had been noticing since I took position here. And I shared with him those concerns, and we together looked for ways that we could remedy those concerns that I had. Since that meeting, there have been several other larger concerns that have come to my attention, and I'd like to revisit those a bit, just because I don't think that I've done my due diligence to reiterate those concerns with Mr. Abbott specifically. And then after this meeting, I'll be sharing with our team, and they will probably pass along to you the laundry list of concerns. I'm not sure how it all plays in the sunshine, but I can list them all if that's necessary, or if we're permitted to share, then I guess I'll look for guidance on that.
I suppose it'd be nice to be attorney, we're here to answer that, but I
Yes.
think it would, by sunshine, I think you would pretty much have to share it here. I don't think you can give us information outside of this meeting.
Right, so, with that being said, I can just start listing all of them. Some of them are not very large. I just think that they show a symptom of a larger issue, which I've already shared with Mr. Epic on the 6th. Starting with the ones that have come to my attention after the 6th is the diesel tank public works that was not an EPA approved container. The timeliness or any response to the folks that are trying to develop the Auto Mall / Orange Point parcel, and assets being listed on insurance and not being cross-checked with the asset list have come to my attention. Prior to those, as I said, I discussed with Mr. Evan on January 6th, the debacle with the taxes and the assessments regarding stormwater and trash. Adding employees for hire at the end of the meeting. And I have those in, I'll make sure that I list specifically. Agreeing to a certain pay amount, which was outside of the budget amount proposed prior to commission discussion. The public works truck that was taken off site. Mitchell Brothers playground equipment being taken down and sold, that's the wrong word. Scrapped, correct. The the Mitchell Brothers playground equipment being taken down. Again, some of these are smaller, but the Christmas decorations that were not up until the 17th of December. The angel didn't have wings and was not lit up that I saw. The tree lighting was incomplete in comparison to past years, and this was 2 years running that I noticed this. We've needed a public works director for quite some time, and I believe at the July budget workshop, we discussed trying to expedite that. Here it is February, it was just on the agenda, so that was one. Website updates and regarding meetings and audio files. There was a meeting where we were told there were records that were missing. The mistake that happened in regards to cemetery plot not being listed for sale or not being offered for sale, and the permit for the blacktop driveway that's in our gateway. The generators, we were told, were working prior to the hurricane, And once the hurricane came, we found out that there was one that in fact was not. Multiple public works issues, such as pothole street signs, leaks needing repair, and fallen trees down for quite some time, weeks on end. Also, a loss of public trust. Carl Gore being rehired as an employee of some sorts, which I have discussed with Mr. Emmett, have been brought to understand is acceptable due to the way that was handled. And I just want to include that since it's on my list. And resolution 22-03 was not seen through completion and was made into 2023-03. Offensive jokes to the developer that wanted to put an RV lot, RV repair and sales. And lastly, the Virginia Drive project not being done satisfactorily, my apologies, before handing off the last patient. I know that was a lot of information to wrap up, but I appreciate you getting through with me. And I would like to, at this point, open up for further conversation from everyone up here as to what your thoughts are and how we should move forward before I elaborate.
Okay, I'll begin. That must have been the perfect amount, because I put your last thing on the very bottom line of my page. Thank you for going through that. I know it's not what you wanted to do, but I think the sunshine thing, I may be wrong on that, but.
I'd rather err on the side of caution.
Exactly. But this is a good, thorough list. There are quite a few things on here that we have discussed already, and I know you said as much. I think many of them are simply problems that have come before the city and have been dealt with. Problems are inherently going to happen. That's why we have an administrator. The answers aren't always going to be perfect. Like the diesel tank. I'll take that over to your first thing you mentioned, and it came forward that there was an improper tank, and we were dealing with it. I mean, calls were made. The EPA, I think that's the right initials, came in, told us what we had to do. We're working towards doing that. Finding a problem, I don't see as being, that's why we have an administrator. It's not why, it's not a fault. He's here to deal with problems. And numerous of these fall under that for me. Many of them, of course, work around fall under public works things where we obviously have a significant problem. And I think kind of from the higher level of that, where to find the fault is very difficult, and that's why we're having the discussion. I'm not trying to be argumentative at all.
I don't take it that way.
I appreciate it. But where we place the fault for that, that can be borne in part by the administrator, in part by us, in part, I could list 100 parts probably. But Public Works has been a big mess for a while. Certainly the administrator can wear his share of that, but I think we wear perhaps a bigger share than he does in many ways. That's one of my, when I self-assess, that's one of my biggest things that I beat myself up about, is that we haven't been able to solve this problem yet. And it's, as a businessman, I'm sure, it's always frustrating to have a problem that keeps being a problem. We want to find solutions and get it done. And working in the city makes it particularly difficult. I'm used to just laying down an edict and having a solution, forcing a solution. Can't do that in the city.
because we rule by committee. Anyway, those are the first things that came to my mind. I'll open up the floor to anybody else who wants to weigh in.
I just keep going back to, we're seriously looking at hiring our 6th city administrator in 15 years I've been here. I go back to the thing that I keep talking about, that we really need to find a way to generate the revenue that we need to from the city. When you do the job of city administrator, city manager, either one of them are very similar. Larger cities, 1,200 cities, can distribute the workload over multiple department heads. And I think when you have a transition from one city administrator to the next, and one leaves, much like our public works director left, that put a hole there. He's already understaffed, undermanned, and it exacerbated the problem, and we saw the results of it. I think he was responding to the commission and being supportive and looking for a way to hire someone and nurture them and bring them along, and try that with several people, and it didn't work. So it's very easy to come up with a mistake like that one because one of them. It's very easy to point at staff and say it's their fault. Really easy to point to the commission and say it's their fault. But of all of the objectives that we have that are going to help us fix our problems over the long haul, it's how are we going to fix the funding mechanism to take care of all of the things that are wrong in this community. We have depended on volunteers for a long time. And now we're in what I call the social media era. Now we have not only staff commissioners that are being degraded, undermined through the social media, and how are you going to get a volunteer to come out and do works that's going to be lambasted out there? So I don't think that leaning on volunteers over the long haul is an answer. I don't really feel like taxing people out of their property. I don't think that's the right thing to do. You know, like many of you, I'm not interested in big box stores and the traffic that comes with them. It's a serious problem. It's a serious problem. I think the administration that allowed the cost of property to turn from 8 1/4 lots into 1/3, I think was a huge mistake. I think the best thing we can do in this community is have a significant number of larger lots, larger homes that you actually will generate more revenue off of a $750,000 house on an 1 1/4 than you will for a $250,000 house on the same amount of property. It's not my word for it. Go ask any question, I think they'll tell you the same thing. So I think that was a huge mistake. And if you don't keep your eye on that ball, okay, all that's going to happen is the problems will continue to mount, because the price tag to fix those problems will continue to mount, and we need to do something about it. I thought, I'm not a fan of apartments and condos and stuff, but I thought when Mr. Early brought this project to us, I thought the good outweighed the bad. I really did. And because there were multiple goods there. And so sometimes when we recognize, if we're willing to accept that the biggest problem we have in this community is a funding issue, then our job is to figure out, okay, how do we take care of that? And sometimes you just need to say, you know what, that inconvenience is worth what we're going to get out of it. And so I think that's our biggest focus, because I don't think continuing to run off staff, change staff like you change your underwear is going to be beneficial to the community. That's what I think. And I think Lee's put in a tough spot, to be honest with you. He's put in a tough spot. Is he doing a great job with it? No. He's working great. But considering what we're asking him to do, with what we're asking you to do with it. It's a tough spot. I wish I had an answer for you. I don't. But I feel like the most difficult job we need to do is figure out where the streams are. And then we can do it. Thank you.
I'm working on my information for the termination hearing.
Okay. Okay. I'll weigh in on a couple of points here. I think we have another significant issue in the city, and talked about it before. Funding is certainly one. It's hard to, in a small city, you think you're gonna pay small wages, but what you've got are positions that have to wear many hats, as opposed to being able to narrow their focus. And so we need a person with broader skills than a larger city much of the time. And you end up, I mean, we talk about that in public works. Yeah, we have somebody that can be water and mechanic and electrician. And those, where the ability to wear many hats generally drives up the price, and that we think, because we're small, we can pay less. It's a dilemma that we have. And I think that's, like you say, it's kind of where we are and what we have to live with, but recognizing it is important. I think another problem that we have, we're trying to solve it in this last charter review. One of the changes that I think is a very difficult one that needs to be made for the city is the way we have sort of a hybrid city administrator / city manager. It creates a tension in that job that is recognized by everyone who would take the job. And so our market of potential employees as city administrator or city manager, or whatever you want to call it, understands the problems that our charter creates for that position. And it limits who we can get. Again, it's not impossible. Our charter is not impossible to abide by, but it creates a need for somebody with exceptionally broad skill set. And to hire somebody with an exceptionally broad skill set, you're again looking to get a very high price person, and we're looking to pay less than very high prices. So we've created a catch-22 for ourselves. I would like in the future to fix that charter dilemma, but I can't just dictate. I can only work within it. But we'll perhaps try again in the future. Do you want to go through item by item and talk about things? I think that would take, okay, I think that would take too long. But many of these I would dismiss, and I know you're trying to just put things on the record basically, so I could dismiss it would be appropriate as well, because you're just kind of getting on the record. Many of them, he's tried to remedy, like cemetery plots was one of them that I saw. He brought before us, and it will still be before us if we take it, but he brought before us a solution. It's a problem. We're looking for a solution, and he's bringing us a potential solution. Again, I think that's what an administrator should do. If we have a city manager, we would just solve it, just hire people or contract people, but we keep that at the commission level, so he has to bring it to us. He could have solved it in most cities without us ever bringing it to anybody's attention again. Part of that dilemma that I talked about. Anyway, I won't go through everything on the list either. I do see this city as creating much of the problems that he gets saddled with, and not that that's anybody's fault, but we should be self-aware and realize that laying it all at the city administrator's feet is often inappropriate. Well, I'll open it back up. Anybody else want to?
If you don't mind, I'd like to If you wanna go first.
No, I was just, my thought was, if these are questions that need to be answered, and, and we're gonna go forward with this hearing, we probably should have those forward and give him an opportunity to explain those. And, I would like to do that all the time. I want to be doing it every single week that we go through. And so, forwarding that list of questions, whatever Roger's put together, so that can be answered.
Did everybody have a chance to review Lee's contract? It was sent to you?
I did not.
Okay.
I did.
So the procedure for it, there's termination without cause, there's termination for cause. Before you get to the hearing, you have to terminate Lee.
Okay.
Then you decide, do you want to have a for cause hearing? But you've already terminated it. So you terminate them in essence without cause, then at the same time, you decide, do you want to have a for cause hearing? So I just make sure that no one thinks that you can have a for cause hearing and decide, well, we're not going to terminate it, because before you get to that for cause hearing, you've already terminated for the contract. So you can obviously discuss his performance, you can do job evaluation, you can do all that stuff before. But if you're going to get to a for cause hearing, that does not happen until after he has already been terminated for the contract.
So with that said, going the informal route, preparing a document, a list of questions that you would like him to answer, I think that's fruitful.
Well, I'll jump in, we'll come back to it, don't worry. But giving the list here in public, on record, it does give them an opportunity to go through each of these things and get back to us at some point, which I think is completely appropriate. And we should give them that opportunity. I don't know if right now, on the spot, would be the right time to do it, but you should have opportunity to get back to us on each and every one of these things. And I'm sure he's probably eager to do that. But thank you for that clarification, and also for bringing it forward to, again, public setting, so people understand what we're dealing with, without having to do public records requests on our emails, which they can, but it's a step they shouldn't have to take. Mr. Rose.
Thank you. So following up these grievances, if you will, with the conversation, how it concluded between the two of us on the 6th. I did receive a lot of answers, but I did not receive all of the answers, and I believe that Mr. Evan is actively working on most of the things on this list. I do recognize that this is an uncomfortable conversation to have in a public forum. Unfortunately, it's just the nature of the beast, so here we are. But I do not come with just a problem without having a solution in mind. So what I would like to see happen is, if possible, if agreeable to everyone. And of course, this is a workshop, not a meeting, so we're not voting on anything today, just a reminder. But I would like you all to think about the possibility of bringing someone else on to help our city. We do not have a public works director, and many of the issues that I did bring up stem from not having a public works director and being spread too thin. Even if it's temporarily, I believe the Florida League of Cities can help us out with finding someone, and they can help us in interim while we're in between. I also I just want to say, none of us look under a microscope. It's not good for anybody to be put under that looking glass that closely. So that's just how it is. But the course of action that I would like to see happen, and I will highlight them in my email, but I'm also going to say them here for Sunshine. The public works truck, I do not feel that I got adequate answers about, even after our last meeting. I don't know if adequate action has been taken and what has been put in place since this incident to prevent another similar incident moving forward? What policies do we need to look at? How can we correct this? Same with the Mitchell Brothers playground equipment. I would like a formal answer on what happened with the equipment and the funds that came as a result of scrapping that material. And then the other one, sorry to leave for my stars, but I'll send this right away after the meeting. What policies and procedures have we implemented to cross-check our insurance and asset list so we are not continually paying money for vehicles and or assets that we do not have, or having assets that are not insured? And one other thing I would like to see corrected, and this has been a source of contention since I started, is more open communication. I think a solution to this could be hiring a company to do our social media where comments are disabled and handle our website and any communications to the media, et cetera, that are needed. Publishing agendas, or I'm not sure if that's able to be outsourced, if you will, but I think having more clear, consistent communication and meeting people where they are, which is social media and the website, which we have been directing people to for quite some time, will be helpful in regaining public trust for this position. It's a hard position to be in. Those are my only comments at this time.
Well, the only thing I want to say is about that playground equipment. It wasn't scrapped for money. It went to the dump. We paid to get rid of it, actually. So,
I'd like to see that in writing. Thank you for sharing that.
you probably had to receive it coming from the dump.
Sure.
I'm just curious, was that equipment in such a state of disrepair where someone could have got hurt on it?
Can I answer your question?
Yeah.
Two pieces of it's in my son-in-law's backyard. When they brought it on the trailer, there was two pieces he got for his kids to play on. He took them off the trailer and put it on there. And then they drove to,
Roger, that doesn't answer my question.
then they drove the rest of it to either the scrapyard or the dump. They said it was going to the scrapyard, so I take it by their word. But there's two pieces, if anybody wants to look at them, they're in my other house's backyard.
I appreciate the information, but it did not answer my question. My question was.
They did answer your question, they were usable.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry,
We're having a
I'll say it again. Was there anything wrong with the equipment where someone could have gotten hurt? Was there a liability issue to the city if on any of those pieces of equipment that somebody could have got hurt? That's my question. And if the answer to that question is yes, then I would say thank you for getting rid of that liability issue for us. Let's not lose sight of that. Okay? So there's more than one side of this.
There's two pieces that can be looked at.
I can appreciate that, and we can talk about whether or not we could have kept some of it and gotten rid of others. That conversation we can have. But if someone took the initiative to make sure that a piece of equipment that could have hurt or killed the child, okay, was no longer on city property, I want to say thank you.
And to your point, Commissioner Basso, I appreciate that perspective. I sincerely do. My question then in response to that is, what policy do we have in place, and does it need to come before us for a decision on what to do with that equipment, or is that up to the discretion of our city administrator?
And I think the answer to that goes back to what Cameron was talking about earlier today, which is we don't have a city manager that gets the ability to just make those if he makes them right, well, they go on Harold, if he makes them wrong, he gets roasted. And, most city managers, will just make that decision. They're probably their public works director would look at it and make that decision. It would never come back to the council. But because we're small, and we have lots of eyes in the community that look at everything that goes on, that as soon as you want to get rid of somebody for whatever reason, then people will continue to look for reasons to get rid of somebody. And all I would want to do is separate the BS from the reality. That's all. And because we don't need any employee here, including the city administrator, that is either doing the job to the satisfaction of this commission. What I don't want to do is get bogged down in micromanaging city manager or any employee that we have. I don't think that's what our job is. Our job is to be district. If I was king and allowed to just say, okay, well, I would give them the authority to decide what to do with that authority. Why? Because at the end of the day, if you look at the decision that's made, you can't just take one decision. You have to take them all. You have to look at both sides of it, the good, the bad, and then look at the big picture and just say, okay, this person makes way more decisions that are right and wrong. That's where we're become supportive and nurturing. But if we choose that we've already decided amongst ourselves that this person's got to go, and let's just continue to find whatever we can find so we can get rid of them, I don't really think that's the right way to go about it. Seeing smoke and finding the fire and putting it out early is the right thing to do. Taking matches and starting fires is not. And I appreciate your concerns, I do, and some of them bother me, and they're legitimate, and they need response. Some of them, I think, are making rounds of molehills, and some of them are probably a function of the disruption in the city administrative position. So I'd love to hear the response. I'd like to give the opportunity to review any accusations against him and give him an opportunity to respond to all. Because how he responds to things, to me, lets me know whether we need to go forward and look for another city administrator, or we can make this work or not. So, but I think that's the way to start. Seeing how we can't really do an official hearing until we fire him, that we have to do that first. I don't think that's the way to go. That would be myself. I would just assume someone it has their best interest at heart, and they're doing the best that they can. And we can either accept that and just say, you know what, I appreciate that, but that's not good enough for me. Or you say, well, I think you're devious, and I think Roger called it cover up and scams, something like that. Something along those lines.
What's that?
When we were talking about the budget, this is just a cover up and a sham. I think he was those words. So I think it's not in our best interest to use that kind of terminology unless we're sitting there with facts to support it. Because now we're not supporting nurturing. Now we're not trying to help them. We're undermining. So I just want to be kind about whatever we do. If these days are numbered, then there should be a good reason for that. Okay? If they're not, then we should be supporting nurturing. Period.
Thank you. I missed one note, and I just wanted to circle back. There's another thing I think we can do that would be helpful to staff, especially while we have less staff, is bringing on some interns. I know we've had interns in the past, and maybe some of these smaller things that we have to do on a daily basis could be given to those interns. And could help alleviate and maybe facilitate communications to the departments that are needed. My apologies for not including that here.
I'll jump back in here and say, first thing, top down, thank you so much for coming with solutions as well. That is fantastic. I wish everybody everywhere live life like that. I'm sure make a better world. And a lot of these solutions that you brought forward, I think have real potential. One, going back to the Barley cities, perhaps providing some additional help. It's very intriguing. I'll definitely look into that. If you know anything more on that, if you have looked into that already, kind of options they may have for us, feel free to share, because I'd like to hear more on that. I can do the research myself if I've already done some. Please share. Another thing from an overview standpoint, Commissioner Vassal's comments made me think of this, is that we, being the commission, are primarily a policy and legislative body. We are not administrators of said policy or legislation. We hire an administrator for that. We certainly have every right to look at how he is carrying these policies and procedures out, but it's his job to interpret what we've written and do his job. His job isn't really to come back and look for our blessing prior to doing anything. His job is to interpret what we've already written or previous, what we've got on the books, whatever commission vote. So we're kind of, in some ways, coming close at least to overstepping our bounds as a policy-making body, and stepping into more of an administration body. I think we need to be careful of that and aware of that. I don't know if we necessarily cross that, and really are just looking at what's going on, but we're coming pretty close. So just bear that in mind. Another option that had crossed my mind and came up in a previous meeting, the last meeting, was a personnel board. I brought that up in a conversation that I've been thinking over. I don't think a personnel board, just to answer some of the public comments that were asked about, a personnel board, I don't believe, and if I'm wrong, Mr. Simpson, please let me know, but I don't believe a personnel board would apply in this case because he's a contract employee.
That's right.
So a personnel board would not be applicable in this situation, just to answer some public comment on that.
Because you have the right to terminate him for no reason in the PERS contract. We have policies and procedures about step discipline in our policies and procedures, but the city manager serves at the pleasure. So there's nothing for them to review.
Okay, thank you.
To your point, that would have alleviated some of the friction we had recently with Public Works employee, and perhaps would have saved some time for our staff to, free up their time for something else. So maybe some of these things will have come to light.
And you're right, and I did have that on my notes of something to talk about in this meeting, is a personnel board, and whether or not whether or not we as a body want to, what's the right word, find people to fill that board and recreate that as a resource for the city, and as a resource for the city administrator, frankly. Right now, he's flying without that net. It's kind of an ability for either the city administrator or a department head. It gives them a resource. If they're having a problem with an employee, they can refer that to an outside board. Do we want to recreate this board and get it going again, or are we, it hasn't been done in 20 years and I'm old, right? Mr. Simpson.
Technically, by charter, you're supposed to have it. It's not really optional. You're supposed to have it. You're kind of anti, but no one applies, and you can't form one logistically or practically, but it's not an option that you say, let's just not do anything.
Well, if somebody would appeal to it, we would have to create it. Is that
Well, look,
kind of my thought behind that? If I'm wrong.
and I'm thinking that's one function of it, but another function of it would be, or, and you could tell me whether on all basis, would it not be a function of a employee review board to take all of the applications that all the public works directors put in, and then make a recommendation to the board, rather than go to the city administrator? Or would they make, or would he have his comments on what they did?
The charter just says you need to have a personnel review board.
It doesn't say what they do.
Let's say it does anything. So you gotta have one. What they do, I believe is up to you.
It's in our city guidelines, policies. we got.
Yeah, but those can change. I'm just saying, by charter, you have to have one. The scope of their authority is up to you all.
I mean, I could see the value of having
And
a,
I think, like the employee situation we had in December, which you referred to, that, if I'm not mistaken, that was a probationary employee, and they do not go, they don't have a right to go to personal. You know, as worded, we can change it, but I think as worded, I think I was told that they do not have a right to go to personal. So that wouldn't have changed that situation.
and as important that function of it is, I see, you know, you had a well-informed, well-educated person review form, having them review applications from department heads and bringing another perspective to the table. I still want the input from city administrator, you know, because that person's going to be working directly under them. And, but I think that could be helpful, most certainly. I can't help but thinking also of a lot of the issues that we have. You're right, our threaded through public works. And we didn't fire our public works director. We didn't fire the public works director. He came under scrutiny through the social media, and there was pressure on him, for sure, pressure on all of us. And he chose to leave. Now, you can make the argument that the vacuum that was left in many of the problems that happened because he left. But with that said, the fact that he's willing to come and share his knowledge, et cetera, with us, I think it's a positive step. I think that I can't put all the blame of what happened to the public works department on the city administrator. I can't. Not when you have a department and just walk out. So, from that perspective, it would be good, you know, to have a personnel review for people who have complaints that want to go, you know, because it's hard to have your employer an HR officer as well. You know, could they do that role as well, or at least in the advisory capacity? I think that might be extremely helpful.
I think I would definitely suggest that they review and recommend, or review our personnel policies, recommend changes to personnel policies to this body for adoption. And I would definitely put that within their scope of the board, in addition to hearing employee grievances. To the degree you want to involve in the hiring process, possibly. Because that's actually a sunshine meeting when you have that board. So if they're going to whittle down people, then that's a sunshine meeting. And we get past the top three on this commission, and I don't know if we should have this administrator be a member of that board.
No.
But he could be a advisor to that board.
I guess the way I see it, let's say you have 10 people who grab, I would just want them to rank. I still don't see them all. Okay.
So you don't want anybody eliminated?
Excuse me?
You don't want anybody eliminated from consideration?
Correct. Okay, correct. And with that said, but I would like to see them ranked. And then I would also like to hear the city administrator's take on, you know, where he ranks. So now I know I have this intelligent group of people that look at it, okay, and say, okay, this is what we think, the administrator, this is what we think. And then I just think it makes our job easier, and I think it allows us to get a better candidate at the end of it. I still think, I keep going back to dollars and cents. It's hard to get, good people to come in and work in our community, because it's much more difficult to work in a small community than with some big one. It just gets more scrutiny and you have to wear more hats. So instead of paying, like Cameron was saying, the going rate, we pay more than the going rates. And for years, we weren't doing that. It's a tough situation.
Mr. Eckert,
Yeah, I got tired of listening to all the communications going on and everything. Here, I just put in my 2 cents worth. There was a comment made about, we've had 6 administrators since we started hiring administrators. At least we're not like Deltona. They had 6 in the last 3 years. Ours was 6 in the last 15. They're a bigger city. They can afford to hire a better manager. So if we have to go through another manager, get rid of Lee and start with another one, hey, I'm all for it, because that's the process of trying to build a team that's going to work right for the city of Lake County. As far as micromanaging, and we're not supposed to micromanage Lee, that's his management style. He's eavesdropped through the cameras on watching employees. He's had citizens go out and film the employees, whether he's done it on his request or somebody else's request, and bring that information back. He's done a lot of things. He's put probationary people that aren't qualified into positions, and I think that us backing him and condoning what he's doing is just creating more opportunity for him to continue with tearing the city, what I consider tearing the city apart, and creating confusion and chaos in the thing, so that he gets his way on how to get things done. And I'm going to continue, even though it may not be for a termination hearing, until we terminate him. I'm going to continue investigating all the things I brought up on Tuesday to get the information and documentation and everything, because I don't think Lee is working at the city's best interest. He's forgotten a lot of deadlines that have caused us problems. He's brought issues to us in the last minute. There's other issues that he's creating to create his defense for the termination that us sitting up here are allowing to occur. And I made mention of that at the last meeting, when we wanted to bypass what the job description was for the public works director. And I said, no, we got to go by what's in here. He wants us to bypass our policies and regulations, because that creates a defense for him in his termination hearing. As long as we do not hold to our policies and our guidelines and everything, it gives him a defense. And that's what he loves, in my opinion. And as far as constantly blaming Rick Mullins for his leaving, it was Lee Evatt's management style that forced him to make a choice on whether to stay and try to stay and work underneath the micromanagement style, or to look out for his best interest in his family. He chose his family. And I congratulate him for supporting his family in that issue. So it's not all Rick leaving on his own choice. It was a choice he made to benefit his family that would work out best for them.
Well, I think you're right, there's always 2 sides to everything. And one of the things you mentioned early on, and I think I may have been misunderstood, we have every right to look at how he's doing his job. I don't,
But what I, yeah, I know, and that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that's not what any of us individually should be doing. What I was saying as far as how this body together functions, we create policies and procedures, we don't administrate. But we certainly have the obligation as a body to,
abide by and make sure that they're being abided by. That's administrative.
that's not the way I was gonna finish the sentence, but, you know, when they say people finish each other's sentences, it's usually a different kind of sentence.
That was my sentence.
But what I was intending was that, yes, we can supervise how he's doing his job, but it's his job to do it. If we see that he's doing it correctly, it then becomes our job to deal with that. And that's what we're trying to do. I'm just trying to create that distinction a little bit, or keep it in mind. I'm not telling anybody what to do or not to do. That's what I kind of want to make sure I was being clear about. I'm not telling you how to do your job or what to do in your job. That's really not my intent. It's just that as a corporate group, what we as the commission are doing, that's the way I'm seeing it. And you're welcome to tell me where I'm wrong, or if you don't see that. I appreciate it. I really do.
You can't say you're wrong, that's your opinion.
Well, no, my opinion could be wrong. I've had wrong opinions before. And
Well, not on that stuff, but, I wasn't sure.
It happens. Again, thank you all for weighing in on all this. I think it's been very helpful having this discussion. Thank you, Heather, for bringing it back to us. I do appreciate it. I hope it's, in the sense of the sunshine law, I hope it's been helpful for everybody here. We're not just taking anything for granted. We're not shirking any of our responsibilities. We're trying to get this job done and done well. So thank you.
In the interim, I gotta make sure I get a copy of what Heather submits and the answers that he gives for it.
This is a workshop meeting, and as such, I just got a blue card for request for speech from Ms. Prescott, so I'm just saying. We're not required to have any public comment or just commission discussion. I probably will have public comment at the very end of the meeting.
That's what it's.
This will be more of a final type thing. Just didn't want you to feel like I was ignoring. Okay. Well, I think we've all had our opportunity to weigh in on this leadership discussion, am I correct? Good deal. I asked for the next thing, mission goals, objectives, and I mentioned it 2 or 3 meetings ago. My intent was to put together 2 or 3 or 4 things that we as a commission were wanting to be our primary focus going forward. Obviously, we've got to do the work of the day, whether it's approving COAs or whatever. We've got to do that kind of work. We've got to supervise the administrator, whatever we're asked to do on a day-to-day basis. But I wanted to boil down on kind of what we felt like as a commission were the primary things this city needed work on from us, whether that be water or public works director or whatever. And I've asked y'all to look at that and think about that. I don't know if anybody has done that. Do any of y'all want to have any of y'all?
I'll be happy to start because I'll be short.
Go for it.
Our goals and objectives should be to take care of our local and adequate infrastructure system. In order to do that, we need to figure out funding. So our primary objective should be, how are we going to fund the needs of the city? We're wasting our time talking about what we want to do, when we want to do it, until we can figure out how we're going to do it.
That's exactly the kind of thing I'm thinking. So thank you. And that's, yeah, I second that, so to speak. You're looking at me like you're wondering.
Well, no, I was gonna say, I laid mine out the other night for policies and procedures to be
Okay,
looked at and make sure they're followed. And
okay. We've got infrastructure, policy, procedures. Anything I want to throw out there?
Yes, I believe that we need to focus on employees. I think our employees are the most valuable asset that we have in this city, and without having our departments properly staffed with the proper people, we are not going to even be able to reach our goals.
Or that's just what you, you put your spot. That's not the point, that's not the point of this.
I've got about 4 pages of them, but, I narrowed it down. The, in exterior primary goals for the city, I believe should be our water system improvements, get that corrected so that we got healthy water without any problems and our pipes and everything are running good. The next one would be stormwater issues, because we have a lot of areas in this past storms, even though the master plan seems to be 75% knee-jerk reaction to the last storms. There's a lot of other issues that were not included in it that have been ongoing problems that need to be corrected in the city. My third one would be public safety. We got a lot of problems with people wanting to test their cars out there, and they don't care about the other people that's around. And that needs to be corrected, and that can be done properly. And for our citizens that are walking around, we want to create a tourist atmosphere here and have people come in and visit us. But we have very few crosswalks for the citizens to be protected into the cross streets and everything. Even our trails that are through town don't even have any crosswalk designations to protect them when they come out with short distances between the edge and the woods. That all needs to be corrected. Right, and then the, all the existing projects that may end up losing funding shortly need to be taken care of. And for the interior things, reviewing our policies and procedures and support our employees. I agree with those two from Charlene and Heather. Those are the two big ones in interior parts. But if you want the whole list.
Actually, what we can do is if that truly is a list,
This was going from when I first got elected and I put together.
well, what we can do is, if you so desire, we can make that part of the record of this meeting, and then we can all review it.
Some of it, I think 1 or 2 of the items were already taken care of. There's quite a bit.
Would that be okay, though? Let's just make, okay, if you'll give it to the deputy clerk after the,
I did a couple years ago.
okay, well, let's do it again.
I'll give it to you again.
And then she can share that with all of us as part of the public record meeting. And I didn't think about that one earlier, with your list, that I worked that way, just to submit that in writing.
This does not include all the new ones.
I'm sure, that might be awesome, thank you. So, maybe next time we can do that way. We would have a list, we don't really want to read the whole thing. I didn't encourage it, I apologize. So thank you all for weighing in on that, I do appreciate it. I didn't expect, and most I did, and I don't disagree with anybody, of course. That wasn't the intent. The intent was just to make sure I'm not working at cross purposes within of y'all's, any of your, goals, is one of the main reasons I wanted to do this. So thank you. I never had any intention of that being long and overly, if you will.
Robert, you mentioned 2 of the infrastructure, the water, which is potable, and stormwater, they didn't mention sanitary sewer. And I think it needs to be mentioned because we currently don't have a wastewater treatment facility in the city of Allen. And I hope we never have one. But if we're forced into a situation to where we have to have city sewers, and that could happen at the state level, or we could be forced into certain homes that are around wetlands and drainage areas, have to go to the new septic tank systems, which are currently between $25,000 and $30,000, maybe as much as $50,000 by the time. So I think, once again, when we talk about funding, if our constituents put in a situation all of a sudden have to put $60,000, put in a septic tank, there may be many people that opt for the gutter. So I think you need to keep it on the horizon and recognizing that it's going to pop its head up someday.
I know it's gonna pop its head up someday, but it's not on my list because we don't have a current problem with our sewer system.
It's not, it sure does bear watching.
Yeah, and that's assuming that we think all of the septic tanks that are currently leaking right now are not going into any of the waterways. It's not a phosphate problem, so I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think the problem there is just quiet right now, and it doesn't really matter whether we have a problem or not. If the state says we have one, and they make a mandate to us, well, then we need to be prepared. Now, oftentimes when mandates come down, the state also will provide funding to help, but to not have it on the radar, I think is a mistake. Thank you.
That definitely does bear watching. I think you're right, if it were to be mandated, much as with the rural water thing, when they make mandates that small municipalities will have trouble meeting, they do provide some funding mechanisms. And if we get there, hopefully they'll hit us with a sledgehammer, but they'll do it nicely. And you're right, it's important to keep an eye on it. They don't have a lot of.
Water in general has been a hot topic for quite some time, and so there's more and more attention going to protecting it. And it's already been a movement to go after the septic tank. From the people that I talked to, the lady that came in here, I spoke to her before, and she said they had their way, they were doing it all. So my thought is.
So they have their.
And they may. My thought is always been, especially with larger lots, I would rather have one septic tank field, 1 3 million gallon a day wastewater treatment plant. That's a lot bigger problem than the other. But I also believe that, we could be in a position where we have some sort of hybrid. You could use one for one size lot, and then where you're backed into 4 houses an acre, maybe you do pick up some sanitary sewers. Anyway.
Thank you all. The next thing we're doing is Public Works job description. I believe that Commissioner Eckert, you had requested this be on the agenda today, or I suggested it as a way to move forward in the last meeting. I'm not sure how it got here, but we're here. Do you want to take the lead on this? We'll get it started.
Well, as what came out in our Tuesday meeting is the job description that we approved towards the end of last year ended up being in conflict with the applicants and their timeframes on being able to get certified. Because it was a 12-month thing, and it's going to take 12 months just to do the on-job section of the requirements. And I noticed in the new one that's published with the agenda that has changed to 24 months. Give them 2 years time to be able to do it.
Me personally, I just assume it'd be 6 months. Because either they're already in the pipeline and already ready to take the test.
Although they're brand new, like all the applicants were, except for a couple
Well, yeah,
And realistically, in that circumstance, it would be very difficult to achieve that while they're on the job. And that's what you're saying. And you're absolutely right. There's no question.
but someone that's already worked for somebody else for a period of time, taking for it, and it's just a matter of testing it. And then that's somebody that could have promised it.
Right.
And I don't want to eliminate them just because they don't physically have it right now.
I will ask,
But one of the reasons that was presented for the one that we approved in 2020, before we found out about the DEP's requirements, is the timeframe. So the old one you had to have the license beforehand, which narrowed down the applicant list. And so the object was to expand the list. The new one, I haven't really gone through it that well yet to look at it, which expands it to 24 months. Actually gives a better time frame. I just haven't gotten with people to find out exactly how long it takes to do each one of the sections to see if that'll still fit in the 24-hour time frame or the 24-month time frame. But either they've got, to me, either we gotta go to our old one that says they have to have it before hire, or we go to the one that expands it to allow more time to be able to get it.
Yeah, I can see the value of both.
Mr. Administrator, if I could ask you, you said you had some conversation with US Water. Could you, I'm sorry to spring this on you, I should have voted for me now, I was going to do that, but could you tell us what they had?
We the connection we had to DEP was, there was an issue about that the employee had to be part of the company, or could a company train somebody from another company? And in fact, it can train somebody from another company, and the US board can train an individual within our employee. There are 2 tests that need to be taken initially before you go into the intern occupation portion of it. Those are not difficult tests, and can be done fairly quickly. The number of hours is 2,080 hours of actual on-site work. That's probably the most time-consuming part of the whole thing. And other than that, the testing itself is not that rigorous. So, what's the right number? 12 is too short, 24 is probably better. 36 would be ideal, but 36 is a long way out if people are employed, not to have. Although, I would point out, this is a backup position, this is not what we need for day-to-day operations. But it's up to the commission how you want to do it.
And thank you. That's my position on this, and I'm not adamant about this, but I feel like I'm not out of line either, that this does not need to be a hill to die on for this position. It is a backup thing. That's very helpful. I think having knowledge of water is very helpful. There's no arguing that, but I think it being a hill to die on, rather than just simply have, I think the more important component of the position is managing all of public works in its entirety. And I think that's what we're lacking right now as a city. We need a solid manager that can get the entire department functioning again in a cohesive way and fully staffed and all of what we all want. Water is an important part, but I think we're getting bogged down in it, to the detriment of the city. Just my opinion. I think it's well handled by contract. Anyway, so our next step in,
Well, I would like to,
okay,
I started reading through some that I already got mine, and I think needs to be removed off the job description.
what's that?
On the illustrative duties, the last one is supervises utility billing proceedings. I think that should stay in the office in here. I don't think he needs to supervise the billing proceedings. I think he just needs to make sure that the stuff works correctly.
I'm not sure I understand.
Well, I don't know why he needs to supervise utility billing proceedings.
I think what that means is if the person is billing, okay, that's a question. Excuse me. The way I understand that is just if the person in the office that's doing the billing, has a question, then they would go to the, public works director.
Well, that's a thing, but he doesn't need to supervise that, he just needs to respond, which he has to respond to citizens' questions in return. If he respond to citizens and staff questions in concern.
Yeah, I think the word supervisor probably could,
It's
could be.
more of a cooperative arrangement between finance and public works. Public works generates the numbers, finance produces the billing, so.
You're probably correct, it's probably better, cooperates with better supervision.
Yeah, because supervisor sounds like he's going to be there overseeing what they're doing. It's like,
But that historically is how it's always been. So, what if we change the word from supervise to coordinate? That's fine. That work for you, Robert?
I guess, I don't know how it would fit, the terms would fit into it.
Basically, the problem, not the problem, but the part that, what the city has to have is numbers from public works in order to generate bills. So City Hall has to get the numbers from public works in order to generate bills, right?
So what we call it, cooperate, supervise, public works is the first step in the process.
Right. And I think where the potential breakdown is that obviously the billing person here within City Hall does not have supervisor authority over public works people. So he or she can't come in and say, you gotta give me these numbers by Friday or else. Ultimately, the supervision, because this is interdepartmental, if you will, would come up the chain. So would ultimately,
You're absolutely right. We don't have a department head per se for finance, which would be the other half of the public works department head. So it's kind of a lopsided arrangement with one being department head and one being the clerk.
again, it's sharing multiple hats within a small city.
And that's when we have to get in.
Or both. Sorry.
No, just.
So we need to have a job description to put out, to advertise with in order to advertise for more applicants. But assuming we want to move this job search forward. So I want to make sure I don't act out of line here. Is there anything wrong with this, other than this one correction? Is there anything additionally wrong?
Just on a brief thing, just that one item was the only thing that I was concerned about.
That, and the water.
Everything else looks fine, just from a quick glance.
Well, what do we want to advertise for on the Class C license? What do we want to put it there?
Well, again, on retrospect, I mean, I want it to be shorter, so, to have a focus on, but you're right, I mean, that was one of the things I said the other night was, what is our priority, as far as qualifications and stuff. Lots of things that are written as part of what we want, but what is really most important to us, and I think it is management. And I was hoping that we could get somebody that was close to being licensed, but I can see now the value of extending the period, because now you can get that managerial position in there. And it's, yes, you have to live with, or agree with U.S. law to take care of certain things going down the road until then, but at least we could do that. I also think it's a good idea for the city to work out a consulting agreement with Rick Mullins. I really do. I think for us not to be able to take advantage of his knowledge is a mistake. But at the same time, I think that looking for someone with managerial skills and be able to stop the madness that's going on in public works. I think that's, that may take fresh blood.
Do we still want to have the requirement for the water treatment operator's license? Because the DEP only recognizes water distribution system, water distribution operator, and wastewater operator.
There is a distribution license that's relatively easy to obtain. You do need a water plant operator, C licensed water plant operator.
Yeah, that's listed underneath the, it's the right term saying distribution, the water license is all including through the treatment and everything. It's not just,
No, there is a separate distribution license, but you can't, that just allows you to be in the field, you can't do anything with the plant. And the plant license has been expanded recently to include many of the features of the distribution. DEP recognizes that just because the water leaves the plant correctly, doesn't mean that it ends up to the customer correctly. So they do want you to test it at various points in the process.
the water operator license includes the well and
Yeah,
the distribution.
yeah. If you have a water license, you're at the top of the heap. You have capability to do all those things, except backflow prevention. That's a separate license too.
Yeah.
And relatively easy to obtain, but it's only for doing inspection and commercial properties.
Well, perhaps we could use this and, we could use this as a,
Well, I just had to confuse any prospective employees, so I think if we change those to DEP water operator license, I think that would cover it.
We know what you want, so let us put the wording in that's appropriate.
I was gonna say, we aren't, this is a workshop, so we aren't actually taking any action today, but
We
you
want
can
to,
certainly be prepared for the meeting on the 9th.
we want to have correct terminology too.
Yeah, I didn't bring my handbook with me to look at the exact requirements, but
Mayor brings up a good point. Make sure that we understand you, we'll take no action on this until the 9th, you'll approve it directly on the 9th.
That would be my goal. What do y'all think about that? We need to, I think, get the process moving forward.
yeah, I think that's good.
So we'll have the changes prepared to vote on the 9th and start the process rolling again on the 9th.
We'll do that. So work everybody.
Okay, that brings us to
Commission and staff discussion. Anybody want to bring anything up?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
A couple meetings ago, we talked about the calendar of events, and I was hesitating, should I bring it up earlier when we were talking about goals and objectives, doesn't really quite fit there, but I do think that having a calendar of events and, it'll give us somewhat of a checklist of when things need to be done, deadlines, but also then a more public one that we can use out, to advertise events that are happening in our city. But also for us, to reference the events that we need to represent the city at, that happen outside of our city, and then the deadline. So I'd like to see if we could possibly put together something that we can reference, that will hold us accountable, hold staff accountable, and kind of a checks and balance that we can stay on task and mindful of what is coming up. And that, I think, will eliminate things falling through the cracks.
kind of like we want to have something to do on April 15th.
We have done that in Texas.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, at one time, we were talking with the League for the Living, putting together an annual calendar of, and basically it was events. And that's great for the external one, the glossy pictures, and et cetera, blah, blah, blah. But the internal one, to, okay, you need to get this done, you have deadlines, we have certain deadlines and stuff that staff is on. I don't want, once again, I don't want to micromanage staff on the same token. So it's not going to be look as a checklist, because we didn't see it come up in front of us. We can say, hey, what about, oh, yeah, you're right. And, but we don't have that in front of us, you can't do that, and we all want to get stuff like we did at the end of last year. We could put things on the other one passes. That was a mistake.
And also, I think, Veterans Day, the last Veterans Day we had, was it, and I know because of the hurricane and everything, we had very poor attendance. And to have it, in advance, that it's going to be on such and such date, or, if it's not going to be on Veterans Day, would help to create a more community. I'd like to see more sense of community restored. So, small things like that, which of course is not a small thing, but I think it really just.
But these small steps,
They
all add up together to just make things work.
Right, and, honoring our veterans is a mean thing, but to have those events may seem small to some people, but it really is, it's a sense of community, so I'd like to see if we could maybe work on something like that. And then we have to do have Arbor Day coming up, which I'll bring up at the next meeting, my thoughts on that, but I haven't seen anything or heard any discussion, so just things like that. He was on task.
Yeah. And I took a picture of the thing that came across my television last night actually. It's a quote, "Success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out." These small efforts and consistent effort towards a goal is what makes this work. One thing that we missed last year because it sneaked up on me and it never occurred to me was the Lake Island Cleanup Day that we have every year. I forgot who mentioned it to me the other night. I think you were standing there, Chief, but somebody mentioned the Lake Island Cleanup Day. I believe it was Alan Cook. I think it may have been you. Thank you for giving me a heads up. We need to be prepared and create the Lake Island Cleanup Day again. We missed it last spring, and then we kind of halfway tried to pull it back out of our hat, and it was at the wrong time, and nobody showed up basically. So it was a big fail. I'll take credit for blame for that, but I would like for the Lake Island Cleanup Day this year to go better. Does anybody know when that historically, is there like a date that people expect that to happen?
First Saturday after spring.
First Saturday after spring?
It's when it's usually.
Okay. When is that?
I have to look, I think it's sometime in March. 6 weeks from today.
What's the ground on thing?
Well, spring is 6 weeks from today.
Okay.
Yeah, well, you look at the map, it's 6 weeks from today.
That's fine.
March 25th?
Well, assuming that's correct, and I have no reason to believe it's not.
What's the first Saturday after that? Or,
After he's the first day of spring,
yeah,
that would be Saturday.
well, it's on a Saturday?
Yeah,
that works out good.
So,
Is it the day after spring or the first Saturday after spring?
First Saturday.
Yeah, that would be the 25th.
March 25th. So let's shoot for March 25th for being Lake Island Cleanup Day.
We haven't done enough cleanup this year.
We got more to do. I'm sorry, Randy.
I said, I started that back long ago, if we had a calendar event, so you can get that. And tell you all talking about seriously. We've always had a good calendar event.
Well, we're trying to make sure it doesn't fall through the cracks and that we keep it going.
Yeah,
You're right. None of us are saying it's never been done. We're saying we need to be good better at it.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Sure.
And I know you always have good calendar events.
Yeah. And we want to keep it. That's what we need.
It helps the public in the transparency, so everybody can plan accordingly.
trying to get better at.
Yeah, last year was a change date because of hurricane.
I'll endeavor to schedule the hurricanes more carefully.
Also, if, Dominic, if you want to go through the emails, the Volusia Lake City sent a list of their meetings for the remainder of this year. So that can be on the calendar.
So I'll announce now that March 26th will be Lake Helen Cleanup Day. 25th, man, March 25th will be Lake Helen Cleanup Day. Thank you. And we'll try and get out some notices. I was giving some good advice on how to get the word out on that, and we'll try and get that more public. Back to what you were saying, Commissioner Rutledge, about, you didn't mention it in your last thing, but it occurred to me that having an online presence with getting information out, making sure that's well managed. Honestly, I have no idea what that takes or how difficult a job that is. Whether we can just assign it to somebody on staff and it happens in an hour or a week of their time, or if it's more. I remember in one of our seminars at Florida League of Cities, we were talking about monitoring and managing the online presence, and I finally they were talking about all this stuff that cities should be doing. I finally raised my hand and said, how many people do you have doing this? And they said, well, we got 6 people on staff, but this is their job. I said, we have 4 people in City Hall. So to me, it's somewhere in between, but it's not a small thing, but it is something, talking about meeting people where they are and communicating with people effectively. We need to start trying. And
So if I may, really quickly.
yes, please.
There are companies that do offer those services for municipalities where they just post the upcoming things, the agendas, the meetings, events, and then, during hurricanes, they can post the, what is it called? Yes, the PSAs, thank you. Street closures, et cetera. So those things will be off of the staff's plate. It would, of course, come at a cost, but I've worked with companies in previous jobs that have outsourced in that way.
There's such a specific set of skills that I think it would be beneficial to hire somebody that has that set.
Right, because I'm definitely not a social media expert. I'm not going to claim to be, but I do think that, I think I read somewhere that 70% of US adult Americans are on Facebook. So that to me is a huge untapped resource of communication and transparency that we're not harnessing, so. Yeah.
Well, maybe staff could get a couple of companies, maybe we could put out, I don't know if we want to go out on a request for bid, or maybe we could put together, what a request for bids would look like for that. It's a relatively small thing, but if we don't know what we're asking for, that'd be the place to start.
Yeah, let us explore, if a lot of municipalities have, we would certainly pick that.
If you're ready at the next meeting, let's talk about it again. If not, just let us know where you are as far as talking.
Next meeting is a week from today.
I know, it's very quick. But you can say, yeah, if there's more for us to know, great. If not, then the meeting after that, we certainly should have something.
Even if it's by April, I think I'm agreeable to that.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, I just wanted to at least open communication.
I agree completely. And I have not dropped the ball, but I have been, I haven't looked into that any at all because I'm not on social media at all. And so it just kind of, I'm the old fart that doesn't see what's happening around me. So sorry about that.
There were a number of companies that send them through our email, through our city email, of the different programs and everything, and I think Civic is one of them. I might want to see what they have offered, since I think we're already using them on some items.
What's the name?
Civic, CIVIC.
There's the Civic Plus.
Maybe that's the one. It's the one that the League of Cities uses to do and I think even the League of Cities has something
It was certain,
that has resource to it. Because there's something that they have on there about they'll do, if you have something about your city you want to get out, that they do those announcements through their system for nothing.
Yeah, and they also provide like templates for public service announcements and a variety of things. And you can almost find, whatever you're thinking about, you can probably find that template. So, anyway, thank you. I don't want to be a roadblock in that communication process, so I'll keep it on ignorant. Last thing on the agenda is public remarks and adjournment. Nebraska, you have a card?
Yes, Kelly Nebraska, 616 John Street, Lake County. Unless this commission or the previous commission had dismissed our personnel board, we had volunteers that were with our personnel board. I think there was 5 members. I don't believe there was a time limit on how long we served. We just never used it. It didn't arise. So those volunteers might still be interested in being on the board. I would think that would be courteous to reach out to them since they were there, but we didn't use them before. Also, I've been talking to a lot of residents and talking about the position for the public works supervisor. And the consensus, 1, they would like us to bring Ricky Mullins back. 2, when we do search for that employee, that they have those qualifications with the C-class license already. So that way it's not like a whole new learning process and we can kind of just, an easier transition to get things going because we're so behind. When I first brought up the issue with the playground and the defaced truck, when I first, it's not very
I'm
loud.
not sure why the gain has gone down on that, but you've got to really eat the mic right now.
When I first brought up the issue with the playground and the defaced truck, my point was that it wasn't handled properly, the motions of how it was done. They did not go to surplus, they did not go to auction. Those are the procedures that with our assets, how they go. So that was the point of it, and I think the point has been missed or overlooked on where I was going with this, because these are assets owned by the city, and that's how it's done. When we have assets, they go through the proper channels, regardless of how they balanced out to 0. Even if that truck wasn't usable, it still could go to auction. I know there's monster trucks, they need something to run over. So these are items that go that way. And I won't spend much time on that. Good news is, after speaking with Dominique, day before yesterday, because I saw our AD guy come in here, so I had asked, are we paying another bill for him to come in? Well, the answer was yes, and I have located on our March bills paid for 2022, where we had already paid him the sum of $15,622.80. So now we have paid that invoice twice at $31,245.60. So I found you guys $15,000.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
And that, the list of the personnel board members, that would be an interesting list to have. If you could give me those names, that'd be great.
I'll have to look through old
I
information,
understand.
but there should be record of it here.
Yes.
I just looked it up, they had 3-year terms.
Okay, I'd still be interested in
You can still, they may still be interested, but their
My
terms.
apologies.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody have any last thing, commission remarks? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.